Hey, we're back again for an update for legislation that's going on in Frankfurt. First and foremost, thank you to everybody that came out to the legislative conference there this last week. That was a big success. Of course, we'd always like to see more people there, but for those that did make it out, a lot of firefighters came in. We had meetings with dozens of legislators and got a lot of good positive feedback, so thank you for that. Anybody that didn't make it, again, please reach out to your senator, to your representative, let them know who you are, let them know that you're a firefighter, build that relationship so that when later in the session, if we reach out to you that we need you to call, we need you to email, that there's some kind of a connection there and you're not just a stranger that they're hearing from the first time. So that goes miles and miles. They see me every day. They see President Baer, Treasurer Pletsky. They want to hear from the constituents that actually vote for them. So make those relationships. So they went into session 1st of January. They take a short break. During that break, although they don't go to the Capitol and pass any legislation, they're still there. They're working in their annex offices. So your legislative team has still been present in Frankfurt, meeting with those legislators, going to committee meetings, and making sure that your voices are heard. So we'll start with some stuff that happened that we're kind of watching, but legislation that we don't think is going to actually get through this year. First of all is the Interstate Compact. That's more of an EMS issue. Talks about state licenses being able to cross state lines. We don't like it because the fact is people aren't going to be coming into Kentucky to work, not with our pay, not with our lack of a pension. People are going to leave. So we need to try to work on making sure that we keep people here and try to make Kentucky more attractive for people to work. So anyway, that we don't think that's going to come through this year, but we're keeping an eye on it. Another one, the statewide USAR team. This could be a good one. We're keeping an eye on it to see exactly the details. The people that have pushed this forward have been keeping it real close to the vest. They have not involved any of the stakeholders in it. So we're really kind of staying on top of that. And from what we've heard, this year is going to be more of an educational year because this is a priority of the governor's office, and the Republicans are not going to want to let Beshear get a win in an election year. So it's probably just going to be informational this year and get passed through next year. But we're keeping an eye on that. Obviously, we are always trying to educate our legislators about pensions and our lack thereof for our Tier 3 people. And we need to push that Tier 3 for hazardous duty back to Tier 2. I would love to tell you that that's going to happen this session, but I'm not going to BS you. The fact is, it's not. But we continue to push on that. We continue to educate. We continue to fight for our Tier 3 people. But just keep in mind, that is a long game. We took a defeat, and it's going to take some time, a war of inches to get it back, get it back, get it back. So another thing that came up that's not going to happen this session might be able to happen next session, state incentive. Our state incentive pay, as you know, is $4,000, and then budgetarily they kick in an additional $300. That's just a line item in the budget. Still comes out of the Fire Commission money, the same source. However, the law states $4,000. We want to get that law bumped up to codify the $4,300 so we can build on that. But we were told by the Senate A&R chair, Senator McDaniel, said, hey, that's a next year issue. The long session next year is the budget session. The short sessions aren't supposed to have budgetary items. Unless, of course, whoever's in leadership decides that they want to suspend the rules and get their things through, but not going to happen for us. So that brings us to what we're pushing through this session. And again, short session, not a lot of things going on. So if we can get through without losing anything and get a couple little things in there, that's a big win. House Bill 52, if you remember a few years ago, we got legislation passed that allows for mental health treatment for firefighters. You get the treatment that you need, and you can get it reimbursed through the Kentucky Fire Commission. The only thing about that is it required a diagnosis of PTSD or PTSI. And so what House Bill 52 does is expands that definition a little bit to more of just stress injury so that we can really make sure that we're protecting everyone for, say, general anxiety disorder, depression, co-occurring addictions, etc. We just don't want anybody left behind because sometimes those diagnoses can be very difficult to receive. Something to understand as you're talking to legislators. Remember, this is a Fire Commission program. So there's some rhetoric out there. Why aren't you also protecting EMS? We would if we could, but there's no funding mechanism for EMS. That would have to go through K-Beams, and K-Beams doesn't have a funding mechanism like we do. I think absolutely they deserve it. However, this is a fire commission program, so it's only for firefighters. It also doesn't cover teachers, and it doesn't cover road engineers because they're not firefighters. So anyway, that we're going to work on that, make sure that people, some of the legislators that have heard that talk, understand that this is a fire commission program that we're pushing through. Brings us to the drop. The drop. I will do a separate video to educate people on the drop in case you were not able to attend any of the e-board meetings or any of the other meetings where we've discussed this and explained it, or if you weren't at the legislative conference. But just to talk about legislatively drop, we are getting some good traction on that. There should be a bill draft in this next week. League of Cities are actually kind of taking the forefront on this with us in support. We did testify this last month at the Public Pension Oversight Board, myself, Secretary Treasurer Pletsky, along with the League of Cities and the police chiefs to push this. And from our meetings this last week with the legislative conference, we got a lot of really good positive feedback on this. Some questions, obviously, but again, this is a cost-neutral plan. It is not a benefit enhancement. It's just another option for some of our members as they're looking towards retirement. So I'll give you another video that gives you all the down and dirty explanation about that so that you can make sure you're educated on what a drop is and what it is not. That is the Delayed Retirement Option Plan. But in the meantime, we're going to keep fighting for you in Frankfort. So you people stay safe out there, and we'll see you next week.